This watercolour animal tutorial is how to paint a squirrel and is packed with helpful watercolour tips, tricks and techniques. Let's get started. Pop in some burnt umber first. So we need some different colour underneath. The thing is, if we just go straight in there with black, black is quite a bland colour, quite a flat looking colour. So to use a little bit of colour underneath, like brown, if we wanted to lift any paint off, we should still have a little bit of brown underneath for that to show through, which is quite nice to have actually, so we've got that kind of fall back onto as well. So we'll pop this in all the way around, thinking about where the shape of the eye is, looking at your pencil marks, you can just see them in there, just slightly outlining where we've got to go. And if you cover any areas up, like for example I think we've got a part of an eyelid here, I can ball that off later on, so it's not a problem. We can take paint away as well. Some paint's easier to lift than others, you'll find. And just kind of working out where it all goes. These are lovely little eyes on these, aren't they? Really nice little eyes. Okay, right. So wash the brush out, and I'm going to go into a little bit of intense blue. And this is that kind of milky consistency. And very lightly, don't rub it in otherwise it'll blend in with the black. Very lightly, just tap around the edge of some of these highlighted areas. As I say, we will be popping in a little bit of watercolour white over that, just so we can give it a bit more sparkle in there. But this intense blue is a lovely colour actually, I do like this one. Really handy for certain colours in birds, especially things like kingfishers and parrots even. So it's very handy for that one. So that's half the body, so let's start popping the colour in. Just by tapping initially, we can move it around as we go along. We can get paler and paler just by adding more water or just moving it. Bearing in mind this will dry much lighter, always does. And bring them away down to there and around there. I don't know if I've done these pores, but I'm going to fill them in anyway. See how dark it is there, because I'm picking up the water on the paper as we go along, and by doing so it just makes, obviously fades the colour, dilutes it all the time. Bring it right in towards the eye, just for now. As I say, we can fine tune things as we go along. Now when you do this, do it all the way along down to the bottom of the tail, okay? I'll show you the top part. Just try and get it on my screen here. I know we've got some more strands sticking out into the background there, so I'm not too worried about those just yet. We can put some in if you want. Look at the direction that these lines go, and you can see they're going that way, then that way within the tail. Some are going upwards, some are going that way as well, all over the place. But there's a general direction that you can see within there. So when you do this, make sure you've got that, and then when get my double zero brush, one second, I've got a brush in my mouth. When you want to get to the final lines, use your double zero brush, just whilst it's nice and wet. Remember to keep maintaining a wet edge down here, just so you can keep it working. And then down the side of the ear. Down here as well, you can see how bright it is in that area. And within the ear, just there. Just a little bit brighter now. Just wash the brush out just to soften down some of the areas here. So it's quite bright there. You can see how flat this foot is. So I'm going to wash this brush out and give it a good wipe on some tissue first and some paper towel. And then lift off just a little bit of that paint to there. And then the same on the inside of here. Just a little bit. Don't take too much off. And this will just help us a bit more there. At a later stage, when we get the colour in there over the top, when we get the detail on the top, it should be really. So it's lifted that off. Now this is fairly light along there anyway. This is starting to dry, so I now need to give this either a blast with a hairdryer or wait for it to dry naturally. I think I'm going to give it a quick blast and then we'll get on and put another colour on the tail. So cadmium orange, alizarin crimson and burnt umber, but more burnt umber for this area. Now we know that this area is quite light, but to show all the light kind of details in there, we'll need to add the dark as well. So you need a bit of both. Can't have light without dark, and vice versa. If you see me pause every now and then, it's because I'm stopping to look at the photograph in front of me, which is what I suggest you do. Keep looking backward and forward at the photo. I say it many times, but it's so important because it helps you kind of get some idea in your head, so to speak, on the directions that these little lines go. You can see these go in this kind of general direction here. And see, when you look at the area around the forehead here, so they're quite dark in places, so we'll add some dark ones in there. But looking at the angle goes like that. Got a bit of watercolour wash, so we'll extend the head a little bit on there. That's what we can do, little tricks. Pull a few odd lines out further than they need to go. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm working around. If you haven't got one of these and you haven't got anything to make one with, don't worry. Just keep using your detail brush instead. It's not a problem. Just takes that a little bit longer, that's all. And then working my way around to where the area just underneath the ear. Now this is the edge of the mouth here. Just working out where things are. Let's just plot it out before we do any further. And then you've got the paw coming down to here, and the leg into this area here. Now we know that this section here it's got a bit of white in there, which we can add in later on. But this section is really the background colour, which we haven't put in there yet. We'll pop that in later on. That's not a problem at all. So let's just work out where each individual toe goes first, or finger in this case. So pop those in. About down there, sorry, so it's about there. Now I know these all vary in direction, but only slightly, don't they? They're all sort of going in the same way, but they will slightly overlap in places, so allow for that as well, so they're not too symmetrical, even though it's obviously using this detail brush, my replicator. But as I say, just vary them as you go along. I think the thing about something like this kind of brush I've got as well is that I can vary the angle slightly. I'd have to use two together, or sometimes it's three on there, sometimes it depends how much paint is on the brush. But I can go sideways as well, so then I can just do one or two sideways. So that's the beauty about this, you make it work for you. Now these little lines here are a lot tinier, very small, so barely touching the paper again, just tiny little flicks all the time. Now I'm starting from the background and working my way in, but I'm doing it very carefully by just touching and catching the paper, then pressing slightly harder as I come down. What I suggest you do, especially if you're right-handed, it'd be a bit easier for you, is that you will start from the inside. I don't know if you can see this on the camera actually, but you start from the inside and then pull out and pull away. By doing it that way, from the inside in towards the background, or out towards the background, you'll then end up with a tapered line. Look at the direction these go in. So that's now is going to be grey when it's done later on, but we just need to kind of get these little reference marks in first. Oh, when you see the eye down below here, lot. Now the brush is nearly dry, by the way, so I'm going to make use of this nearly dry brush effect. So before I reload the brush with any more paint, I'm just going to lightly touch the paper around there. And again, looking at the direction these lines go in, just by adding a tiny amount of detail, barely touching, just within the eye. That's it. That's plenty, I think. Oh, I might tell you what I might do. I might add a little bit more around there as well. Just on the very front. So working on the toes, tiny marks, looking at the direction they got to go in. Barely touching that paper, allowing some of this lighter area to show through. Alright, and then over the top, start defining the edge a little bit. Then tiny marks in between. Remember, we got these sections in between. These are fairly dark in there, but again we'll add some more dark in as we go along. Looking at these directional lines, my brush is going dry now. Right, so working my way up, adding a few little lines here and there. Make sure it's not too even around the edge as well. I want to pull a few kind of odd ones through here and there. Just make sure we've got some odd stray ones sticking out in places. Bit of a bad tail day, should we say, for this little squirrel. A few more as well. Now we're working on these again, flicking these up, just making sure we're going to add a few darker accents in there, a few darker lines. Barely touching the paper, remember, with this. Now I'm kind of wiggling wiggling and jiggling as I'm going along sometimes. Sometimes they just come fairly kind of overly curved strikes, but I occasionally wiggle and jiggle. So what I mean by that, where's my bit of paper? I'll show you what I mean. If I pop that there a minute, I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to put plenty of paint on the brush so you can see what I'm saying. Normally I've been doing all this all the way along, alright? But what I've been doing as well is every now and then I give myself a bit of a shaky hand and a bit of a wiggle line like so, just to add in and over the top of some of the detail. So remember to do that in places as well. I'm going to pop these in, look at the direction that these go in. I remember I said it was kind of a little bit grayer around this area as well. I'm going to make sure we kind of replicate. I'm going to put a few odd ones by the way around this kind of light area, this kind of light ring. Just a few, not too many though, I don't want to cover that white ring in. So these are very, very tiny lines, very minuscule, just by lightly tapping the paper with the tip of the brush. That's all I'm doing with that. This is what we need to do now, is kind of work on, concentrating on working on the shape and the form. So even though there aren't many around this area, are there? But I'm going to put a few in there, but they'll be spaced apart. So these are quite congested down here, it's what I want them to be, keep them really close together. But when you go to the lighter areas, just ease off, just leave gaps in between, so larger gaps. With a clean damp brush, put a line of water here, and then tickle that in, little tiny circle motions, to soften it down, alright, into that line of water. Do the same around the edge, wash your brush out again, and we're going to do exactly the same again for this section here, so a line of water there, and tickle that in, little circle motions into that line of water, just to blend it together, to get that kind of nice shape in there as well. I think we need to do that with this edge of this one as well, looking at it. So again, a line of water just above, then tickle that little line into that line of water just to soften it down. Make sure you wash your brush out in between doing this, okay? Again, just tapping, adding a few in here and there. That's all I'm doing. I don't want it looking too flat, so you've got to think about where it's darker within the toe. For example, I know we're going to add some white in there later on, but it's dark around here, or darker just on this side of the front part of the toe. I can show you what I'm looking at. And then the second section, imagine this is in two sections here. So you've got the knuckle, you've got 1, 2. Okay? The second section there, a little bit darker there as well. So if you kind of look at them carefully and see where it's dark and where it's lighter, you see what I mean by looking deep into the photo. So just put a little bit in to begin with. But you can see now, just by adding this small amount of watercolour white, the difference it's already making, just to give that shape. It's a bit thicker there, look. Just give the shape to the squirrel itself, to the head. Put a few within the ear, barely touching that paper, just skimming it. Some little highlights around the little paws, just around the tips. A few more around there. I'm barely touching that paper, just the very tip of the brush. I do not want to cover all that detail up underneath. Again, that's why I say just add a few, more than too many. You can always add more later. I'm trying to think, because that goes in that direction, doesn't it? Around like that. I will bring that line up a bit more, actually, just around there. Yeah, so keeping an eye on the direction these lines go in. Now, because my paint is fairly thick, I do have to keep reloading. Get some more, start again. Remember to roll the brush and the mixing part to get nice little points when you pull away from the paint. Much more colourful. And if we add too much, we can always add a little bit of dark over the top. Right? So a bit of a shaky hand is what we're looking for. So if I just zoom in a little bit more for that for you, so you can just see that. There you go. So we're working on there. So again, bit of a shaky hand. Keep getting shaky. Now I'm looking at where these kind of converge. They come down to here. I'll show you a couple down there first of all. So they come down to here, sort of thing. Alright. And then shaky ones. And then they start coming in from the other side as well. So shake. A little bit of a twiggle. That's all I'm doing. We're running out of paint now. Creamy consistency, remember, for this. So therefore it's fairly bright when it dries. And again, if we wanted to, we could add a little bit of colour over the top in one fell swoop, remember? So I'm going to come back in and add these tiny little marks within the, just by the side of the nose. Just a few little ones in there. So back to your dark mix against blacky brown. I'm going to pull a few through. So I might just darken one or two little areas first so it just kind of contrasts with what's down there. So just pull a few odd ones through. Don't get too excited. Well, don't get too excited. What we're talking about. Don't overdo it. So don't do too many because it's so easy to kind of overdo something like this. There. Now that's how to paint a squirrel in watercolour. Hope this watercolour animal tutorial has given you some good techniques you can use in your own watercolour paintings. Now let me know in the comments below which watercolour techniques you will be trying out. If you want to go on and paint the bark to finish this animal portrait, check out the information cards where you find a playlist of videos on painting bark. But if you want to see a real-time video on how to paint a squirrel, check out my next video to the right and I'll see you there.